Welcome to Sinister Heroes. I'm your host, Dan Iniquitous. Thank you for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, this is a channel about Dungeons and Dragons where we try and take a darker tone with everything we do here. So if you like edgy kind of content, definitely hit that like and subscribe button. A big thank you to our Patreon supporters. We love you guys. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. If you're interested in becoming a Patreon supporter, the link is in the description, as well as the link to our good friends at Critical Failures, where we're part of a live stream game every Wednesday night. Being a Patreon supporter definitely helps us keeping a good pace with getting these videos out and moving forward and helping to support the channel a lot. It's a very big thing. We really appreciate all of our Patreon supporters. Thank you so much. We love you guys. With all that out of the way, we're going to jump into this week's video. We're talking about vampires. Yes, vampires are a playable species or race in Planescape. Obviously, this is a Magic the Gathering universe. It's official, but it's not really super official, so definitely talk to your DM about it. Both Magic the Gathering and Dungeons & Dragons are owned by Wizards of the Coast. It is kind of the same universe. Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica takes place in Magic the Gathering, and so does Strixhaven. So there is some overlap with stuff in and out. Just definitely mention it with your DM. Hey, it is vampires. I don't know how else to be more excited about it. It's just cool. I think it's awesome. I think there's a couple of cool things to it. I like the ideas behind it. I think it's very simple and concrete and kind of just what you want a vampire to be. There are two different versions of the vampire. There's the Planeshift Ixalan and the Planeshift Zendikar. There's really one major difference, so we will get into that, but we'll talk about some of the things that are similarities. First and foremost, you do get ability score increases. Again, this was before Monsters of the Multiverse and before Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. I would definitely swap those out for whatever you see fit. I don't have an issue with that. I happen to like that, but that's a choice that you have to make for yourself. In Ixalan, you have +2 to Charisma, +1 to Intelligence. In Zendikar, you have you have the same thing in both of them. I apologize. Your age as a vampire is interesting because you don't mature and age in the same way others do. Every living vampire is either a blood chief infected by the Eldrazi's influence, which is kind of like the higher echelons of being a vampire in the distant reaches of history, or will spawn by a blood chief from a living human. Most vampires are thus very old, but very few have any memories of their earliest years. So generally, the longer you've been a vampire, the less you know about your real life. Kind of factual, kind of makes sense. You know, you live for a long, like 200 years, you really don't remember what it's like to be 15. That being said, your movement speed is 30 feet. You're the same size as a human. You're medium size. You do have dark vision. Thanks to your heritage, you have superior vision in the dark. You can see in dimly light within 60 feet as if you were in bright light, and in darkness as if you were dim light. You can't discern color in darkness, only shades of gray. And you do have vampiric resistance, giving you resistance to necrotic damage. Depending on your campaign would depict how often you would encounter necrotic damage, but generally speaking, if you're fighting the undead, you will see this pretty often. Here's where they shift and change. I think they're both pretty cool, but it all kind of depends on what you want. In the plane shift of Ixalan, you gain bloodthirst. You can drain blood and life energy from a willing creature or one that is grappled by you, incapacitated, or restrained. Make a melee attack against a target. If you hit, you deal 1 piercing damage and 1d6 necrotic damage. The target's hit point maximum is reduced by an amount equal to the necrotic damage taken, and you regain hit points equal to that amount. The reduction lasts until the target finishes a long rest. The target dies if this effect reduces its hit point maximum to 0. Now, it is a melee attack, and you are draining their life. So, depending on how you want to do this and what class you might want to use, might depict that. Because if you were a monk, I can see this being augmented by the martial arts style. Again, talk to your DM. Obviously, this is something you want to talk about. You do also gain Feast of Blood. When you drain blood with your Bloodthirst ability, you experience a surge of vitality. Your speed increases by 10 feet, and you gain advantage on strength and dexterity checks and saving throws for 1 minute. Now, understand, there is no limit to Bloodthirst. None. A, you use it, you regain hit points. B, you move faster, and you have advantage on strength and dexterity checks and saving throws. One of the great things that people very rarely use is they don't ever try and steal things from other opponents. You have a lich that's got a staff, take the staff. Strength check, athletics, grab it. Like, you can do stuff like that. Feast of Blood encourages you to do that without having to be a barbarian to gain that advantage on a strength check. Dexterity checks and saving throws, fireballs, everything, it comes out pretty often. And you're all gaining this on top of the fact that you just regain hit points. And there's no limit to it. There's no proficiency bonus on this per turn or X amount of times before long rest. You can just always take this option. Now, the difference between Ixalan and Zendikar is in the Bloodthirst ability. In Zendikar's vampires, you do not have Feast of Blood. Instead, your Bloodthirsting ability does do something different. Everything else stays the same. You make the melee attack. You do 1 piercing damage plus 1d6 necrotic damage, and the hit points is reduced by that amount, the maximum hit points, and you do regain hit points. The reduction lasts until the target finishes a long rest. The target dies if the effect reduces it to 0 to a hit point maximum of 0. A humanoid killed in this way becomes a null. Now, a null is unique because a null is like a zombie. It doesn't depict whether or not this zombie is controlled by you, but it does kind of create this mindless zombie in the area. So if you kill somebody with this in a town and just leave it, it will rise up and it will start killing other town members. It isn't super strong. It has 22 hit points. It has an 8 armor class. It has a slam attack, and it has undead fortitude. It's a quarter CR rating. But if you're in a circumstance where you can drop somebody with this ability, yeah, it'd be cool to have other repercussions come up from it. The way the theory works behind this is you're such a low-level vampire that you can't create a full-blood vampire, and as opposed to that, you create this null. And nulls are kind of deformed. Their bodies are shriveled and disordered. They're mindlessly loyal servants to the vampire nobility, but you're not really nobility. So it's something you really need to kind of work with. They have like no facial features. Like, they all kind of like fade away. You become very bland. And then you have just a gaping mouth filled with jagged teeth. It's just wild. It's really just a quicker zombie, but it just kind of comes up in your wake, which is just weird. I don't know why they call it a quicker zombie. I don't think it is faster, but just the fact that your presence and your murders can lead to that is pretty cool. I happen to think Feast of Blood is better because I like that surge of like you're now regaining life. And now you can feel that blood coursing through your body, so now you're amped up. Like, I like that better, and that's the vampires from Ixalan. I really like these vampires. I think they work out really, really well. I think they kind of fit that like really normal vampire you would see. I think the Damphir walking on walls is very, very cool, but it is a little bit more out there of a concept for vampires to be able to defy gravity like that. But these vampires, I feel like they do not disappoint. You do have a way to regain HP, which is fantastic. I would absolutely argue that if you were a monk vampire, that your martial arts side would affect your melee attack. Because A, if anything else, it's something you're proficient in because it is you draining life specifically as a melee attack. I figure it's a bite. It should be a bite. I don't know how else you're going to do it, but either way, I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think that bolsters this up even more because it's the total damage that you take. It does add up. Adding a D4 to it turns into a D4 plus a D6, and you regain a D6 of health. That's awesome. That's awesome. That will replace your regular attacks. And plus, you add your modifiers to it because you are still making an attack roll, whatever it is. I think Feast of Blood is just awesome. I love the themology behind it. I would love to see that first time your party members see that. I think this is a very cool species. I'm all for it. It's also vampires, and vampires are evil, and I'm definitely with that. If you made it this far into the video, definitely hit that like and subscribe button. A big thank you to our Patreon supporters. I love you guys. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. And if you're interested in becoming a Patreon supporter, the link is in the description. Being a Patreon supporter helps us keep this channel moving forward and pushing us to keep videos coming out regularly. And thank you so much for tuning in and making it this far. We're close to 4,000 subscribers. We're going to hit 4,000 by the end of the year. That's just something I'm really, really proud of and very excited about. And we couldn't do it without you guys. Definitely check us out Wednesday nights. We're part of a live stream game over at Critical Failures with a bunch of great people. It's awesome. I hope you do check us out. And thank you for giving a spooky kid a chance.